Hello and welcome to another Dota 2 introductory video. In my previous video, I introduced you to the lane setup, the positions of Radiant and Dire, and talked about smokes and wards and game objectives and how to win, and so on the lane setup. And you can see the link in the description below. For this next video, I'm going to be talking about how to actually start playing. Things like the career, how to start like an actual game of Dota 2, how to farm, the different game modes like unranked, ranked. And I want to talk a little bit about like the content beat of the game. How often do new patches come out? What kind of fun events are there? And what about the currencies and the resources in the game? And also maybe a little bit into hotkeys, camera control, settings, and quick cast. So let's begin. When you open the Dota 2 client, this is the screen that you are greeted with. You've got the Play Dota button, and there are many options. Custom lobby is where you start a custom game. You can play with friends. Or this is how tournaments are created. Play versus bots, I think, is a pretty decent way to get started without being exposed to the duress of playing with allies and against opponents. The bots aren't very difficult, and it's kind of a stressless way to try out builds, to figure out champs, heroes. I play League 2 these days. To figure out heroes, and so on and so forth. So I find this a pretty good way to kind of get a feeling for the game. And if you want to, you could play this cooperatively as well. Ranked will actually be locked until you get 100 hours of game time in. So that's tucked away quite far away. And once you do start ranked, you've got two options. You can either play role queue, where you actually pick the role that you would like to play as, and you'll be expected to reprise that role. Be it hard support, which is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Or you can go with the classic style. At very high rank, which is probably not a concern for you if you're watching this video, everyone is playing classic style, which pretty much means you just group up. I mean, you just search a game, and when you get into a lobby, there's 10 players, and then 5 players will be drafted on either side. And once it's 5v5, you figure out what role do you want to play? What role do I want to play? And then you parlay. And sometimes if both players want to play position 1, you actually type /roll, and it'll roll a die, and it'll look like this. And, well, it actually doesn't work in this one, apparently. But it'll randomly roll from 1 to 100, and the higher number gets to have dibs, shotgun, on the role that is desirable. This is true at high rank, or if you pick it. But to me, my chat recommended me to play role queue, and I've never regretted it. I've never played classic. I like to know who I'm going to be playing as. Now, the role queue system is interesting because it kind of forces everyone to take less desirable role. The most desirable role in Dota 2 right now is safe lane. Safe lane is the carry. They are the ones that have the greatest power fantasy potential, in that you could 1v5, essentially, if you become strong enough. Though, of course, it doesn't always materialize that way. And this is the most desired. And let's leave out the reasons. Just based on experience, safe lane is most desired. So let's say if you queue up as all 5 roles, you will pretty much never get safe lane. But you want to do this anyway. Why? It's because by selecting all roles, you'll earn 4 role queue games for future use. If you win. Only 2 if you lose. And as you can see, I've got 29 role queue games left, and those can be used for a preferential role. So let's say if I prefer safe lane, then I will be spending 1 role queue game. And in doing so, the system kind of stimulates for you to explore all the roles and to make sure that the matchmaker has a fair representation of different players that can, you know, play every role. Otherwise, if everyone queued up a safe lane, it would get gridlocked and no one would be able to find a game. So I've quite enjoyed the versatility and the variety that this system has brought, the shared responsibility of reprising different roles. And personally, I really like the support role, so it has never felt like a punishment to me. Though from witnessing other players, sometimes people do feel it as punishment. And anytime you watch one of my videos and I'll call them a pretender or a fraud or whatever in the support role, or we call them the role queue system supporter, that's pretty much like saying they're not really doing a good job as a support based on the level that they're playing at. They're kind of phoning it in and doing like 12 to 20 games where they're kind of bad in the support role, but they're just making ends meet, and then they're looking forward to another 60 games in their preferential role. So that's the ranked system, not relevant for you as a beginner yet, but eventually you may want to play ranked, though no shame if you never want to do. And then there's the unranked system with both all pick, which is just like ranked, except not ranked. This is where you generally start with and where you'll spend most of your time. And then there's the turbo mode, which is a shorter version. Some people swear by this and they become massive turbo fans. Everything is faster, you get more gold, more XP. I don't recommend this for newer players. I personally don't enjoy the mode, but I can see the appeal for others. And usually, most people will either only play normal modes, unranked, all pick, and ranked, or they'll only play turbo. You've got really strong fans on either side. And then there's some other modes as well, which are also interesting, but I haven't got a lot of experience and I won't be talking to you about it. And then there's the new player mode. I actually introduced Dota 2 a little bit to my brother who had never played before, and I found this to be actually a really good way to start. Not a lot of people talk about this because most people that know Dota are more experienced already. So it never even came up. I never played this myself as chat never recommended me to play this, but it exists and it's okay. It's a small limited hero pool with easier heroes to play, and also there's automatic item delivery and a bunch of other nice advantages. So that's the new player mode and the kind of different game modes that you have. So how do you actually start playing? Like, what do you actually do in a game of Dota? There's a couple of in-game tutorials and I do recommend trying them out. They teach a bunch of basic mechanics, though a few of my followers have said not all of them have a conclusion that will end up giving you the tick mark saying you're done with it. It's not so important to get the achievements here as it is to learn a bunch of different concepts. You'll click on one of these missions and you'll start to learn some things about, you know, how to use the courier, which is actually a little animal that will bring you your items. But in a normal game, you'll need to start learning how to use it yourself. You can use hotkeys to control them, or you can just drag box select, click it and make it do what you want it to do. I recommend playing all of these. They're pretty fun and short. They don't feel like a dull tutorial thing. It's no longer than it needs to be. It respects your time and it'll teach you a bunch of different concepts that will be incredibly useful once you start playing Dota 2. Some of it may be a little outdated since there have been new patches, but I think it gives you a good running start. All right? Additionally, if you're looking to learn more about how Dota 2 works, you can press the Learn tab on top of the screen. You can go through some of these basics that are here. There's a search function so you can learn more about the thing you're looking to learn about. And the basics are also explained by clicking all these tabs. This is not a well-hidden glossary, but nobody talks about it. And it took me a long time to find actually as well, but I think it's useful. It'll tell you things like how many heroes there are, the different attributes that they come in, though by now there's a fourth basic category, universal. Heroes are either ranged or melee, and you unlock your ultimate ability at level 6. Then, about items, which I want to talk a little bit more about as well soon as we jump into a game. Heroes equip items that improve their stats, and they also change how a hero is played. And in this way, I think Dota 2 is quite different from Heroes of the Storm, and partially from League of Legends. Most items in League of Legends amplify your power, but of course there are also playstyle modifiers in League of Legends items in that they can offer a movement amp to your team. They can have global effects like a global nuke or a global heal, etc. So there are playstyle modifying items there, but I think none of the MOBAs have it quite as big as Dota 2, where someone that might normally not do a lot of damage suddenly will do loads, or someone that is very immobile suddenly becomes a mobility queen, etc. Items are purchased either at the shopkeeper, which is in your starting fountain where you start the game, but there's a secondary shop where you can buy items. It's called the secret shop, roughly in the middle of the map. One on the left, one on the right. One kind of on your side, one kind of on theirs. And then it will explain you about the basics, like the lanes, the creeps, the towers. Every 30 seconds, a creep wave will spawn across all 3 lanes, and you get golden XP from it. You know, basically some of the stuff that we covered. You go to the mechanics, and it's like, heroes can get up to level 30. You get new abilities at various levels. How you get gold, how experience works. So, very interesting. You can read about everything at your leisure. And You can do this while searching for a game or before you go into a game. The mechanics of death and how long it takes you to respawn. So actually a lot of interesting stats. If you like numbers, this isn't essential to get started, but if you like numbers, you can go through these. And there's a lot of info there. So then let's talk a little bit about the events before I teach you about how to control the things that you want to do inside the game. Valve is actually the original creator of the Battlepass system, which is now ubiquitously known gaming system that basically measures progress in different ways than just MMR. Right? It's an activity stimulating system that makes people feel like there's extra meaning to every game that they play so that you can unlock different skins. If we go to the armory and you see all these different skins, some of the unavailable ones, like this Kunkka skin, might only be able to be earned through some battle pass from many years ago. It creates a level of scarcity and rarity that I can never get this anymore, except if I buy it on the marketplace, but someone else earned them through the battle pass. The battle pass, as of this year, 2023, has been discontinued. This used to be an event that ran around as a story beat around the International, which is a big international tournament for Dota 2 with a very large prize pool, though a little bit smaller this year than in the previous 8 years. And a lot of people liked it and a lot of people hated it and a lot of people liked to hate it. Battle Pass was a season achievement system with lots of skins and so on and cosmetics that made people feel like they're part of a greater whole in the world. But it also was very good at extracting a lot of extra money from people that weren't just able to grind up levels to get extra rewards, but they had to buy extra progress in order to get to their next reward tiers to get certain desirable rewards. So people are basically somewhat complaining that it's not there anymore, so that they can't give money to Valve anymore, even though Valve said they wanted to spread out its content density across the year to many different events. Frostivus that we see here is a event that is part of the more disintegrated Battle Pass. We had another event recently which was called Event Frontiers or Long Frontiers or something, and then they actually made a massive change to the map as we know it, making it bigger. What you can expect now is probably slightly less prize money funneling towards TI via the Battle Pass, but more events across the year, usually probably about 3 months apart. And then there'll be like fun things to reward if that's your kind of thing. I don't spend as much time trying to earn emoticons, sprays and stickers, but for some people that's a fun little extra aspect of the game. Right? As for actual balance and gameplay changes, I have been playing for 1 year and 4 months, and I've probably gone through what I would categorize as 8 massive patches. Some people are like, oh, this patch is small. To me, it's the biggest patch I've ever seen in a multiplayer game that I've played. 8 massive patches, probably about 8 small patches if I had to estimate or so. Almost every month there's some kind of gameplay balance patch that has small interesting changes that keeps the game fresh. So it's been very fun for me to be a part of the game so far. Alright, so that's about patches. Now let's talk about how to actually start a game. So if you start a game of Dota 2 and you play against bots, for instance, you start a bot match, you can pick one of the champions, one of the heroes. Let's say I pick Bloodseeker, you lock it in. Now you get 30 seconds to pick your items before actually starting the game. Bloodseeker is most often seen as a position 1 hero, a safe lane hero, also called the carry, and he starts over here if you're on Radiant side. You'll buy some items, for instance double bronze, a circlet, slippers, tango and quelling. More on that later, when I later on do a deep dive about items. We're not going to get too deep into that. But suffice to say that in the 30 seconds of at the final end of a draft, you can buy items already. Instead of having to wait till the game actually launches after this loading screen, and then having to do it in the scramble of running out the gate. Some games like Heroes of the Storm will gate you inside your base. So in Heroes of the Storm, this will be stuck for 30 seconds, so you cannot leave the gate. And that's how you create an artificial time where people can think about things and they can worry about who goes where and so on. In League of Legends, you're stuck in the fountain for like 5 or 10 seconds before you can leave. And that might be the time that you use to buy items. But in Dota 2, it's before the game even starts that you can buy your opening items. As you can see in the bottom right here, there's 15 gold left. I've got everything I need. So I could theoretically immediately go into the map and start, you know, with all the items that I want. So in a game of Dota 2, you can walk to the lane and just wait for the creeps to meet. But there's many other objectives, which we'll cover in the next video, that you may go towards first. Suffice to say that before the creeps meet, there are 4 bounty runes here, 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 and here. They give a little bit of extra gold, and they provide a chance for teams to skirmish and to show their skill difference and their fighting difference. You go there before the creeps meet, and it's the first objective of the game, essentially. They give gold to your team or to the enemy team, and as you see, the AIs are fighting for it, picking up those bounty runes. And then it leads to fun little skirmishes. After all that is said and done, you end up going to the tower, and you'll try to start hitting the creeps, to last hit their creeps, and, it's also possible in Dota 2, you can kill your own creeps to deny them to the opponent, which will deny golden experience, but it's only possible when they're half-life or less. Again, complicated mechanics, we'll get into them in a deep dive later, but I'm just showing you kind of the process of the game. So let's say here the 2 creep waves meet. As you notice, it's very close to the tower. That's why this lane is called the safe lane. And then you just wait till like creeps drop low. And then when they're really low, you hit them. You get the satisfying gold sound. 36 gold, you start getting experience. And that's pretty much the bread and butter of generating net worth in Dota 2. You can get net worth via objectives, net worth meaning gold. You can get it via hitting creeps. You can get it via hitting jungle creeps. And you can get it via killing enemy heroes or even enemy buildings. So lots of different ways to get gold and lots of different ways to lose it. If you die, you can lose gold. So this is pretty much how games will look like. You'll fight your opponent heroes, you hit your own creeps, you hit their creeps. And that's pretty much all you need to know for now for this explanation. But how the hell do you control your units? How do you control your heroes? Well, Dota 2 is perhaps the most complicated and difficult MOBA, at least in terms of all the different things you can and need to do. League is difficult because you need lightning fast reflexes and there's a lot of mechanics and skill shots. Dota 2 is more of a strategical focus. And the hard part is to know how to do all the things. So I hope that these videos will help you a little bit how to do things more. So if you take a look here at my hotkeys, there are a lot of different settings in Dota 2 and they're super complicated to begin with. If you don't know what you prefer and you're not as experienced in them, what you could do is just to copy everything that I have. To that note, I'm going to go through all my settings so that you can see what I have, and your starting point could be to copy all of it. I think I have a pretty good setup for settings, and of course you can change things as you like, but at least you'll have one template to build off of. So I'll show all the different pages. You can pause the video, so I'm not going to show them for too long, and you could copy all the settings. This is hotkeys. Here are the advanced hotkeys. These are the options. And the advanced options, social settings. Here are the video settings that I have. Audio settings with voice chat being enabled, and I recommend as a new player to have it disabled so that you can't hear anybody. I did that for my first 100 games and it prevented me from perhaps being distracted by teammates or maybe suffering the worst of potential toxicity for people that don't understand that new players are new. But right now I have it at 100%. So these are my audio settings and here is my account settings. Not much there. So why do I do the things I do and what do you need to know? In League of Legends and in Dota, as far as I know, you cannot deselect your hero. It is always selected. This is a friendly way to not lose track of your hero. But in Dota, I could select an ally and not know where my hero is. And for that, you need a hotkey. And if you've gone through my hotkeys and you've seen it, you'll know that I press space to recenter on my hero. That can be a useful thing to do. Dota 2 came forth from an RTS. And as such, it follows many of the rules that Warcraft 3 has, and what many RTSs have is that you can do control groups. Control groups is as follows. If you use the hotkey control and at the same time you also use the hotkey 1, you are essentially creating a control group that later you can refer to. So if then later you press the hotkey 1, you will refer to the group that you had previously saved. So if I take this Bloodseeker and I say control 1, he is now group 1. Then if I go here and I press 1, it selects Bloodseeker. And if I double tap it, it highlights him in the middle of the screen. Likewise, space also brings me to my hero and highlights him in the middle of the screen, as per the hotkeys that I've set up. You sometimes have secondary heroes or summons in Dota. You can pre-group them on control group 2 or 3 as you like. And the really neat thing about Dota is, next time you start a game, it remembers. Even if it's like a water elemental that you could only summon when you get level 6 or when you're level 2 or whatever, by the time you summon them, it's automatically still remembered that that's your control group 2, which is really neat. So you'll be like, 1 goes here, 2 goes here. Right? So that's pretty cool. The next thing I wanted to show you is basically how you use the hotkeys that I showed in the hotkey section in an actual game. So let's jump into a custom lobby and I'll talk to you about some of the hotkeys that I've chosen. So I'm gonna buy some items and then we're gonna jump into a game. Right, so I've gone with Death Prophet and I walk out of the fountain. So how do you play a regular game of Dota 2? Well, you go to the lane that is assigned to you or that you think you should be going at. And then the way that I've set up my hotkeys, which I showed you in my hotkey overview, is by pressing F2, I can control my courier. The courier is this little thing here in the fountain that can carry items. So what happens when you buy an item is it will go onto the courier here. And you can then press a hotkey to bring the courier and have it deliver items to you. So say for instance that this courier... I'm fighting and I've got these items and I want to buy a null talisman, which I need money for. Let's say that this is the null talisman and the courier is in the fountain waiting with certain items. The way I've got it set up is that my mouse buttons, where my thumb rests on the mouse, the button that's higher up will make me automatically deliver items from the courier to the hero. Whereas the button, mouse button 3 I think it's called, the one that's closer to my wrist, that one purchases items on the quick bar. So how do you put an item on the quick bar? You hold down shift and then you click an item in the shop. I know the shop looks really intimidating right now and it's partially covered by my chat, but just as an example, say I want to buy a vitality booster, I hold down shift, I left click it and then it puts it in the quick bar. Now when I press the initial mouse button on the left, it is going to purchase that item once I have enough money for it. I'm 850 gold short. And then I can use the other mouse button 3 and 4, to send the item towards me. And that's generally how you'll play the game. You'll get gold, and then you buy items on the courier, and then you'll send the items to you, and it delivers it to you. But there is one catch. Your courier can die on the way. So you might want to control it manually, and that's where the F2 comes in, F2 being the control of the courier. So now I can use shift commands and say walk here and then here and then here and then here, and so it's going to take this path and avoid what I perceive could be certain dangerous areas. F4 for me is opening up the shop so that I can look what there is, and pressing F4 again will close it. Then F9 is pausing the game for me. And F1 is holding open my push to talk microphone button. My items are used with ZXC VBN, which is actually the default way that Dota sets it up. But some people like to change these to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 instead. If you do that, then you can't use control groups the same way that I do. So that's going to be a very personal option that you will have to calibrate yourself. I enjoy the ZXC VBN system, but there's lots of different possibilities and you should find what works for you. A is attack move, S is stop, H is hold and make sure that you don't even engage anyone in fight. And as you get certain new abilities via sometimes the Aghanim Scepter and Shard upgrades, which I'm not going to get into yet, the D and F hotkeys will also be used to activate those abilities. So you'll have your Q, W, E, your R, and then D and F as well. For me, holding the Y hotkey brings open an emote window, which is very important. After you kill someone, you'll hold down Y and you click this twice in a row if you want to be really obnoxious. Holding down U has other voice lines for me, like this one. Oh, I can't. There's a anti-spam. And then holding down I has other hot emotes as well. And you can calibrate these via this setting, the customized chat wheel, and also this one, customize the ping wheel. And then you've got also the phrases that you can go into and check as well and assign to certain hotkeys. Really useful. I haven't got into it yet, but I should. That's about control groups. And then abilities. I have mine set on Q, W, E, and then this is R. This is your basic abilities. This is your ult. Unlike in Heroes of the Storm, you do not start with all your basic abilities unlocked. You will pick one per level when you level up. And you can either choose to go with the quick cast system or the slow cast. The normal default setting is that you press W and then you aim within the green circle and it'll put a blue circle's worth of area of effect. That is the normal default setting, slow cast. So if I do this, for instance, it's gonna cast blood right there. But the way that I have it set now is quick cast. That means that triggered on key press, the moment I W, the system automatically applies a left click for you. And I don't even have to do the left click myself. That's why it's called quick cast. This is faster and theoretically it's better. For a perfect human being and a perfect player, you would know the exact potential range for your blood right. So you wouldn't need to know where that green circle is, because in your mind's eye you see it. So I don't need to first click this and then aim. I would just use quick cast and cast it automatically. But we are not perfect players. We are potentially newbies, or we are fallible humans. And because of that, I recommend everyone not to use quick cast when they are beginning in the game. This way you will learn the settings that you will learn via the settings how far the range of your abilities is. Everything will take a little bit longer to do, but without that you would never even realize the range that some of your spells have. If you start with quick cast in a game, you'll end up using spells next to you, never realizing that they're global. Because you've never seen the range and you didn't go through the effort of hovering over your ability to see their range. Quick cast is better, but many players will prefer to do it differently, and ultimately it is preferential. But I recommend for the first few hundred games, or at least a few dozen games with a hero, is to not use it yet. Yeah. Then, when it comes to camera control, you can move your camera in multiple ways. You can use your arrow keys to pan the camera. You can edge pan by moving the cursor to the edge of the screen. You can also hold the middle mouse button, which means that you essentially drag the map as if you're holding it in this one place. Just like if you grab a map and move it over the wooden table. When I started playing Dota, I used edge panning, which was most common for me in RTSs. Edge panning is pretty nice. You move your cursor to the side and then your camera goes there. It's fast. It travels notably faster than mouse wheel pressing. But the problem with edge panning is your cursor is on the side of the screen. And theoretically, in a MOBA, with your one hero being so important, you usually want to keep your hero somewhat central in your camera view. And you want to keep your cursor somewhat central next to your hero, as that is going to be the most relevant to dodge enemies, run away from people, or to click them. Because of this, the dominant camera control system in Dota has become to use little drags of mouse wheel. That's why you sometimes see people do this, and it looks very jerky, but it kind of keeps your hero in the center. And it also allows you to keep doing right clicks where you're moving. See? I'm doing right clicks and I'm moving there even as I'm also using my index finger to press on the mouse wheel button. Try to do the same with edge banning. And it's not very easy, is it? Because it just keeps moving back and forth. So now you see why that's a popular system. You could also use the mouse cursor. You could also use the arrow keys on the keyboard to move around. But it's also a little bit jerkier, though you can adjust the sensitivity. But then your left hand wouldn't be available for QWER.
Yes.
Huh? So that's kind of about the camera control system. We've talked about quick cast. I've shown you the settings. I've talked about hotkeys. You can level up your abilities by pressing Ctrl Q when there's a level up. So that's mostly what you need to know to get started with a game of Dota 2. In my next video, I'll be going through a list of heroes that are quite valid per role, that are common per role, that are playable per role. And we'll talk about improving at Dota. We'll talk about things like positioning, fighting, farming, defending, splitting, cutting, ratting, ending, comebacking, and maintaining advantages when you're ahead. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you next video.